Well, hello there and welcome to Ready, Set, Respond. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today. I'm Carla Alisea and I'm your host this month and every month as we talk about topics that impact resident satisfaction. So I hope you and your colleagues will join me in the conversation. And don't forget, at the end of the conversation, to head over to our Satisfax uh, Instagram or Facebook page if you have an Instagram or Facebook account, and add a comment with your favorite takeaway from today's conversation for a chance to win that $50 gift card. And guys, today we're going to have some really great takeaways, especially for those team members that are involved in either leasing or prospect experience. We have an amazing voice joining us today, an up and coming in our industry. His name is Ronald Harrington, and he is going to bring a wealth of knowledge to today's conversation about prospect expectations and how to align our strategies with those expectations. Now, here's what Ronald did that I am so excited to talk to him about. Over the last 365 days, Ronald went out and toured 101 communities across 28 different markets and across 88 different property management companies. And he gained a wealth of information through that observational experience. And he's going to share some of his takeaways on what we should be doing better as an industry. Now, Ronald is the training manager at Haven Residential. And fun fact about Ronald, he actually holds a master's in residential property management from Ball State. So we're really excited to have him join the conversation. But first, it is time for our Ready, Set, Respond polls. So guys, get logged in, scan that QR code on your screen because I want to hear from you. All right, these polls don't have right or wrong answers. They're really opinion polls because I just kind of want to gauge, what do you feel? So here, the first question is, how do you prefer to schedule appointments? Not just talking about multifamily, touring an apartment. I'm thinking about when you want to get your nails done, or when you want to get your hair done, or when you need to see a dentist or a doctor. Do you have a preference to schedule online? Do you like to call that provider? Do you want to just be able to walk in and get that service done right away? Or is it really situational and it kind of depends on who you're making that appointment with? So I see 16 of you have logged in so far, 17 of you getting those answers in. Looks like we've got one walk-in, 6 online. Okay, we got a phone call. I actually like those phone calls. I like to be able to have that exchange of information with that person. I want to make sure that they're getting the right time slot for the services that I want, that they understand what I need before I come into the door. So I'm a phone call person. The online systems, I think I shy away from them mainly because they don't provide me the tools that I need to be able to communicate all of the details that I like to communicate. But hey, maybe that's not your experience. And maybe you would prefer to use online if they did have all those tools. All right, we got 16 people in, 17 people in. Looks like online is it, with a phone call coming in next. All right, very interesting. Let's go to our next opinion poll. Now this one, which aspect do you think contributes the most to your prospects' perceptions of sense of community? So a prospect comes in, you're touring them around the community, and you're trying to convey how you guys, instill community once they become a resident. Do you think it's all about promoting those social events and those community gatherings? Or do you think it's about the availability of shared spaces like communal gardens? Or maybe it's about that friendliness and the engagement of the community team, the management team with that prospect? Or do you think it's about those community initiatives, your volunteering or your community outreach? What do you think has the most impact on that prospect's perception? All right, we've got about 5.26% saying social events, 21% saying shared spaces, it's 73% saying that friendliness of engagement. Now, that just tells me a lot of you must be Satisfax clients, because you know the answer to this question. We talk about sense of community and what drives that. But you know what? Let's bring on our guest, Ronald, and see what he has to say. Ronald, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, welcome to the conversation. What do you think about this opinion poll?
I mean, I'm a little shocked that no one said community-driven initiatives. Like, I feel like a lot more renters are kind of looking for, volunteering. And something that I incorporated into when I started multifamily 10 years ago was that community-driven initiative. So that kind of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, that there was no one there. Definitely an opportunity, we like to say here at Satisfax, right? We're all very much focused on that friendliness and engagement. Maybe there's an opportunity there to do some more community outreach. Well, Ronald, tell me a little bit about your experience in this massive research project that you embarked on when you shopped as many communities as you did.
Yeah, so I was working for a company and we were creating a new department. We were creating an experience department, and it had been a while since I had, you know, been out to see what other people were doing, right? I knew what I was doing, it was working. So I said, well, with this new experience department, let me embark on this. I told my boss, I'm going to shop 100 communities this year. And I was expecting my boss at the time to say, Ronald, you don't got time for that. That's crazy. I think secretly I was probably hoping that's what she was going to say. And it became like full steam ahead. She was like, absolutely. And so like, I kind of put it off for a couple months because I was a little bit dreading some of that experience. I was like, okay, it's either going to be really good or really bad. And so she saw me a couple months later and said, it's in March. Have you shopped your 100 yet? And I was like, no, I thought you were kidding. She's like, no, I thought I was going to tell you to do 365.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, that's too much. So the first thing that I learned was kind of talking about, the pre-tour communication.
Oh, yes.
Did we skip a slide?
Say that again?
Did we skip a slide? Were we going to start with testing?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we skipped making the appointment. Yes. Which brings us to our opinion poll, right?
Yes.
So many of our prospects now are making appointments online. When you went to tour the community, or did you do online appointments or did you call? What was your process there?
So my process is I really am into self-service, so like, what can I do where I don't have to talk to somebody, because I talk to people all day. This is what a lot of our prospects are doing. So I went online to see, can I book an appointment online? And so that's where I started. And it was totally random. Like you said, 88 different property management companies. And a lot of times it was, where am I staying at? And is there communities close by that I can just walk into? Her? So I would go online and book the appointment. So I was glad to see that kind of on the opinion poll was the preferred method.
Mm-hmm. And out of the communities that you made an appointment with, how many of them did not have an online appointment tour option?
About 7.
Okay, that's great. So now we're at the point where we are encouraging and giving prospects the tools to make those online appointments if that's what they choose. And what was your experience in that?
It was kind of all over the board a little bit. So what I noticed a lot of times is that our on-site teams probably weren't checking their technology on their website often enough. So I had one example where I booked the appointment online. I got an email right after I booked the appointment, but the problem was it wasn't to the property that I booked at. So I got real confused, right? It not only wasn't like a sister property in the neighborhood, I was somewhere in Texas and I got the confirmation from somewhere in South Carolina, a whole
Okay.
nother state.
So what's the takeaway there for leasing teams?
I mean, so I went to the property and I, said, I think I have an appointment. They looked me up in the system. I wasn't in their system. He then told me, oh, we're just trying, this is a new system for us. So we're about a month in. So I would say, and I do this all the time when I'm on site, is I go into my website and I put in a guest card to make sure that it's coming to my system, right? To my PMS system. So I know I'm getting the prospects. And that's easy. Anyone on site can do that.
Yeah. When back in the day, and I'm going to age myself here, when we were rolling out lead tracking phone numbers, we used to always encourage site teams to check their lead tracking and make sure that the source they were calling from was the source that it was tracking to in their electronic guest card. So I guess the same principle would apply for these scheduling widgets, is you want to make sure that if you go on your website and you schedule an appointment, that appointment is showing up properly on the back end, and that the communication that's being sent to your prospect is the most relevant it could be.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like, there would be times that I would get the confirmation from the actual property and I would go to the property and my appointment was not on their calendar anywhere, even though I had gotten the communication that it was confirmed and things like that. So those little details can go a long way for a prospect, because there's nothing more frustrating than showing up to a property and being told, I don't have you in the calendar. Are you sure you booked the appointment at this property?
Yeah, it just kind of sets not the right tone, right?
Yeah, it creates a little bit of chaos in my mind. Like, oh, is this what the experience is going to be when like I move in? Like, you're not going to have my keys ready, all of that.
Little bit of doubt that we don't want in our prospects preview as they're weighing out all their different options. We want to eliminate that doubt through making sure we have those quality controls in place.
Yeah.
Which brings us, okay, now we're on the right slide, to that pre-tour communication. So you book the appointment, you either do or don't get the right confirmation. What's happening in between booking the appointment and showing up for that appointment?
So a majority of the responses that I saw were automated. There was, no communication. So I shopped, some high rises, some mid rises. If you've ever been to a high rise or mid rise, parking is always an issue. Like, where do I park? All of that. So like I had none of that communication a lot of times, like walking into it. So they didn't know anything about me. I might fill out on there, like when I scheduled the appointment, that I was looking for a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, my move-in date, but they never did any homework before I even walked into the door.
So there's no relationship built.
Yeah. There's nothing. Like, I'm just, and it creates doubt in my mind, right? Like, I had this confirmation, but if they don't know that I'm looking for a 1-bedroom or anything like that, what am I going to see when I get to the property?
I really liked the point that you made about where do I park? What's the best way to get there? What information should a leasing agent have about their prospect before they walk in the door? Okay, I'm going to, again, age myself, but we used to have guest cards. And anytime a prospect would book an appointment, we would try to fill out that guest card before they showed up. So we would want to know things like, why are you moving? What amenities are you looking for? What's most important to you in your new home? Asking some open-ended questions, right? To build that rapport. So when they came in, that relationship was established, and they'd come in and say, oh, is Carla here? And there was already that communication built. So what I'm hearing you say is that these tour widgets that are allowing that ease of use are creating kind of a separation in our ability or in our workflow, because I think we all have the ability to follow up with these tours pre-tour. but maybe a separation in our workflow of encouraging us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like when I would walk in, I wouldn't even know who I was meeting with, right? So I would go in and I'm like, they're like, how can I help you? And I'd be like, oh, I have a tour. And they're like, do you know with who? And I'm like, well, no one's like reached out to me. And, we talked just a second ago about like the tech. Some of the tech out there says like your tour request, wait for the property to confirm. And sometimes you never get that confirmation. So you just like show up thinking like I have a tour. So like there was none of that. So I don't like to walk into things blind. Like people who know me personally know I hate surprises. Like I need to know who I'm gonna go meet with, that kind of thing. There was none of that for a majority of the prospects that are from the leasing staff when I was on site with them.
So there's an opportunity, is what you're saying. There's an opportunity that once someone books a tour, for that leasing team to reach out, establish a rapport, establish a relationship, gather some background, know their name, have them know your name. So when they come in, they're saying, is Ronald here? I'm meeting with Ronald. And there's that relationship being built from the get-go.
Yeah, I think like what I tell my teams too is one of the things that I look at on site is I look at, from a high level, the number of appointments booked to the number of tours actually that show up. And my staff knows, like, if I reach out to the people before, like they book it online, if I reach out to them before, I can guarantee a higher conversion ratio that they actually show up to the property because now they're excited. They know the expectation. They know I'm expecting them. Now they're like, okay, I have to be at that appointment because that person might be the only person out of the 3 tours that I've scheduled that has reached out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a differentiator right there. Okay. So now you're in the office. You finally know the leasing team's name, the leasing agent's name. How was that experience? Tell me a little bit about that in-person experience as you're at the community ready to take your tour.
Yeah. So if I'm lucky, Carla, I might know the leasing person's name by this point.
Okay.
We don't do a great job of introducing ourselves. Like when we go to a property, I found a majority of the time I would be learning their name at the end, like whether I got a business card or, they were like kind of wrapping up the tour. But when I walked into the office, it became like I was just a number. Get them in, get them out. There was no personal discovery. They didn't sit me down, and try to get to know me as a person. It became, what size apartment do you want? How soon do you need to move in? And I like tell people, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret on this one. People don't want to move, right? Moving is stressful.
Yes, it is.
Like, I want people to start saying in our industry, when do you want to be settled into your new place? Because now that's going to create a different experience for me, right? Now I'm not worried about moving. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get settled. I'm going to be able to be unwinding. The moment you tell me move, I like shut down. So they didn't get to know that about me. It was just very rushed. There was no personal discovery. Like if someone were to say to me, I always say closet space is important to me. It's probably the number one on my thing. So if you were to say, Ronald, why is closet space so important to you? I'm going to say it's because I have 67 dress shirts, 17 North Face jackets, 32 blazers, and 45 pairs of shoes.
So we know you're serious about your clothes.
So that should tell you as a leasing professional, I'm probably going to show him our largest closet because I'm going to tell you, I'm not getting away. I'm not departing with any of those.
Yep. And maybe talk about the shopping areas that are close by.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. What are some of your favorite questions to ask when you're getting to know a prospect?
Yeah. So I spend, a majority of the time like getting to know them as a person. So like I want to know what they do for fun. Because a lot of times that's going to tell me, maybe what amenities to make sure I highlight on. If you tell me you like to work out, the gym's probably going to be important for you. If you like to be outdoors and I know that we're a mile away from hiking trails, I'm going to point out the hiking trails. Probably going to go back to my computer at the end of the tour and show you on a map on Google Maps how quickly you can get to that. So I want to know what you're doing for fun because that I'm going to be able to sell the area. The next thing I love to talk about is restaurants. what do you like to eat? Everyone has to
Mm.
eat. I mean, people know I'm not a foodie. I would eat pizza and breakfast food all day, every day for the rest of my life. But other people, like, they might want to know where the nearest wine bar is, or where the nearest social gathering place that they can grab a quick bite. So I'm going to get to know that, because what I'm doing, along with all these types of questions of getting to know them, is building my mental Rolodex in my head. So when I have to do follow up, I now have a reason to follow up with them, to tell them about the latest restaurant, or to give them a recommendation on the nearest concert playing by. And the last thing I just to do is like, what special interests do you have? What are your hobbies? It's
Mm-hmm.
simple. I always tell leasing this, that it's simple. Treat people like people. Like, if you were
Yeah.
getting to know somebody, what questions would you ask when you're getting to know a new person? The same thing can apply in the leasing realm.
Oh, I love that. That's all great information there. Okay. So now you're out of the office, the interrogation is done, and
Yes.
they're walking you around the community. What was your experience when you walked in to some of the make readies, vacants, models?
What was interesting is, one thing that I looked at is, are we showing models still? Or are we doing more vacant apartments? Because there was that big debate, right? High occupancy, let's get rid of the models. So I saw more vacants, and people were like, you can move into this, today if you wanted, but they weren't made ready. I saw tubs that need to be resurfaced, like, I'm not a tub resurfacing expert, but when you see like holes in the tub,
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
that that needs to be resurfaced. I walked into a new build, new lease up. They told me they were about 2% occupied at the time that I went. They took me to a vacant apartment, and in the middle of this vacant apartment was a washing machine being dismantled.
Mm.
I'm
Mm-mm-mm.
like, it's a new build. Like, why is the washing machine already broken? And B, like, did you not walk this apartment before you showed me? Because
Yeah.
you would have known that you had, 298 other apartments to choose from.
Tell me about an experience when something went really well, where you walked into the apartment and you were super impressed. What was it that impressed you about that community tour?
Yeah, so I was one of the last ones that I did in San Diego. I walked in to this apartment, and it was beautiful, double closets, like industrial feeling, which, they said, we have more of the traditional, we have more of the, industrial feel. Which one do you prefer? We walked in, it was made ready. Even like the concrete, like, looked like they had waxed it. Don't ask me
Oh,
how, but it looked like it had waxed it. We got into the closet. The leasing agent said to me, do you think everything, and he could list off all of those things that I said, earlier. He could list that off. He had made the no and said, do you think that all that is going to fit in here? And I was like, oh, I need to find a place for my shoes. He took me to the other closet and said, I think this would be a great space for your shoes, and showed me how I could put my shoes in there, and said, or, we could find another space, and this actually is large enough to be an office, because I work
mm.
from home. So, like, that impressed me, because sometimes when you go into industrial, it's hard to make it look presentable. And there was no
Warm and welcoming.
and there was no
Mhm.
dead bugs in that apartment. I saw more dead bugs in
Mm.
the last year than I ever want to see again in my life.
When I was a leasing agent, part of my job description was to drag the vacuum cleaner from model to vacant and suck up and vacuum those that model every morning before we started touring. It was just routine. You woke up, you get in, you get the coffee going, you get the Otis Spunkmeyer cookies in the oven, and then you grab your vacuum cleaner and your sparkle kit, and you hit your pathway, your tour pathway, and your models and your vacants, and you do your spiff. Sounds like we definitely have an opportunity to get back to some of those fundamentals.
You used to have to take the vacuum. Like, I used to, we had a walk. when I was on site, we could not show an apartment unless we personally walked it ourselves. So before any tour, like you going to get my steps in, right? Making sure you carried the vacuum. We had shag carpet, so I had to carry the rake. You remember when you used to have to rake?
Oh yes, you had to rake the carpet. Yes.
That was like, and now I see a rake and I'm like, I'm not touching that. There's no carpet nearby.
Okay, well, now we have gone through the interrogation. We've gone into a bunch of apartments with dead bugs and washing machines in pieces. You're back in the office, and we know traditionally this is the time for the close. What was that like?
We, as an industry, forgot how to close. And there is this I call it the new way of closing. It seems this is a majority of what happened is we would get done. We would get back to the office. I may not be done touring, but it was very clear that the leasing staff was ready for me to go. We'd get back to the office and they would say, well, if you want to apply with us, here's some paperwork. You can go home, go online, fill it out, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here.
Again, it seems as if the technology has taken over, and the ABC, the always be closing mentality that we used to have, might have slipped away a little bit, right? What would be a better way to incorporate the technology that's in use with those in-person closing tools that we used to utilize?
I mean, I think we have to get back to the direct close. My favorite saying is like, if your significant other were to propose to you and they did it the way that we do it now in leasing, right? If you want to marry me, here's the ring, let me know. I'm going to say majority of us are going to be like, absolutely not.
Right.
We're expecting them to say, would you marry me? And our prospects are expecting the same thing, right? They're expecting us to say, would you like to apply for this apartment? We all do it on technology now, right? So if we're in the model, we're in the vacant, and I'm telling you, I'm loving it. This is great. Why not just say, hey, do you have your phone on you? You do? Great. Do you want to go ahead and start the application in this apartment? This vacant could be yours tomorrow. So I just want you to get a feel for like what it's going to be like to do things in your new apartment home. We can fill out the application online right here. What do you think about that?
And that's a really great point too, especially to demonstrate your cell phone reception, which we learned recently is one of the most important decision drivers for renters, is that they get good cell phone reception in their home. So now not only are you doing that hard close, but you're also demonstrating the connectivity that they're going to have.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that too, like if they tell you no, they're not ready to, they already have their phone now. So that's where I'm going to take it a step further and say, do you need to take any videos or any photos of this particular unit while you already have your phone out? So now I'm getting them involved into this tour, letting them remind them, because, realistically, if we put a lot of different photos up of different communities' interiors, we're not going to be able to remember which unit that was. So
like take a picture of this view.
Yep.
Take a picture of this particular cabinetry, or this view from your bedroom window and this view from your balcony.
And what this does for me as a leasing agent, when they're taking these photos or these videos, it's showing me what's most important to them, because they're not going to take photos of everything or videos of the whole apartment. They're going to take the videos or the photos of what's most important to them. So whether it's the view, whether it's the cabinetry or the closet space, whatever that is, that's how I know that's important to them. So when I go do my follow-up, I know what I need to include in that follow-up.
And you also have all those fun facts from those discovery questions that you ask. Ronald, you are full of really great insights. And I bet that experience touring all those communities really did help you develop some new and fun initiatives for your organization around prospect experience. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and our audience. We really appreciate it. And now it's time for us to play a little game called Fact or Fiction. Ronald, this is a game that we're going to play with you, and our audience members can play along. So if you're still with us, go ahead and scan that QR code, get logged back in. I'm going to read one fun fact to you, Ronald, and I want you to tell me if you think that that fact is actually true or if I made it up. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play. I'm ready for the music.
All right. So here at Satisfax, we've been closely monitoring overall sentiment and satisfaction through our of prospects through our unclosed traffic survey. And this survey captures prospects' feelings after they've completed a community tour. Now, despite external claims, we're hearing some chatter out there that satisfaction levels may be declining, right? Our unclosed traffic survey index has actually remained steady at around 4.5 since 2016. So considering this discrepancy, I pose the question to you. Is this fact?
I'm going to say that this is fact.
Well, I think, it is a high score, 4.5. It is out of a 5 point rating scale, but it's actually fiction. And the reason it's fiction is because the average tour score for the unclosed traffic tour has actually gone up since 2016. In 2016, it started at about 4.45. And now in 2024, as of yesterday, we're getting very close to a 4.70. Now, maybe that's just true for our Satisfax customers. They've got the data they need to make those improvements in their resident and prospect experiences. And as you can see, all of our indexes across unclosed traffic, move-in, and work order have been increasing. We saw a little blip in 2020, but who didn't? Yes, we are seeing some really great experiences out there. Ronald, the next time you go on a tour, you let us know. We'll have you tour some of our clients.
Love that.
Well, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Audience, if you want to connect with Ronald, I'm sure he'll share even more information with you. I put a QR code to his LinkedIn profile. He also hosts a podcast called Rooms with Ronald on the Multifamily Radio Network. Please feel free to scan that other QR code to subscribe to that podcast. Ronald, thank you again for being on the conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, it's time for you to head over to our Facebook page or our Instagram page and post your favorite takeaway from today's conversation for a chance to win that $50 gift card. Also, don't forget to head over to satisfax.com /webinars and register for that next conversation. We're going to talk all about resident expectations and artificial intelligence with Lisa Russell, who is actually working with an AI developer on a solution to help asset managers. She has a wealth of knowledge in operations. She's going to join the conversation. I hope you will too. Now, as we know, all good things must come to an end, and our conversation has ended today. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.